Most people think that the hiring process starts with finding candidates, but they're doing it wrong. My name is John Seifer, and I've owned companies my entire adult life. I've never had a job. In 1994, I started helping other business owners learn from my mistakes at ceobootcamp.com. And I have wasted so many days hiring in an ineffective way. So today I'm going to share with you what I've learned about finding good candidates. Strap in and let's get started. In part one, the missing piece, we covered the 4 parts of a successful hiring program. And we focused on the first part, defining who you're looking for. This is known as a job description. But most job descriptions are not written in the most useful way. In that part, we covered the fact that it really needs to have these parts to it, and the character traits are the most important by far, even though skills are the most prevalent. So armed with that insight, we can now embark on the second phase, which is trying to find these people, discovering where they hang out. And it's important to keep in mind that hiring is a sales process. You have to define who you're looking for. And in sales, we call that a persona. In hiring, it's a job description. And then you have to generate leads. So in hiring, that means getting job applicants to come in. And that's what we're focusing on today. Usually when I share these things, I have a tool or a recipe or an algorithm that kind of works for everybody, but this one's a little different because the usefulness of each idea depends on what you are looking for exactly. Success depends on the details in your job description. And then at the end, I will cover 2 ideas that do apply to everybody, no matter what you're looking for. And I often suggest that you don't write down what you see and hear today, but write down what you'll do. My goal is to spark some action, not just to give you good ideas. And so I like to use OneNote. It's an electronic notebook for my CEO notebook, but if you like paper, that's fine. You should have some dedicated space where you keep your CEO notes. So having said that, my first suggestion is keep your eyes open. This works great when you care more about the character traits than the skills of somebody. And let me give you an example. I was at Bed Bath and Beyond one time, and I asked the guy who worked there where something was. I don't even remember what I was looking for. And he said, "Well, come on, follow me," as they always do. But as we went through the store, without missing a step, he was straightening things up. He was saying hi to people. He was picking stuff up off the floor. And I thought, that's the kind of guy, that's the character traits that I would love to have in an employee. I didn't have a spot for him right then, but that's the kind of thing I mean. Often when you're looking for those kinds of character traits, particularly with entry-level positions or customer service positions, you will find people with those character traits in retail, in restaurant work. And so when you see people like that, latch on to them, connect with them. And we'll get into it at the end, what you do, even if you don't have an opening for that person, they can be part of your farm team, which I'll share how to do that later on. But keep your eyes open looking for those people now that you know what you want. If you're looking for skills, but you don't need a lot of experience, trade schools are often a good place to go. So these are people that have learned a skill, they don't have years of experience. Computer boot camps are now very popular. They're not officially a trade school. They often are much shorter programs, but they're great. They fall under this criteria of somebody learning a skill without a lot of experience. Even high schools and universities have placement departments. And again, depending on what you're looking for, university placement departments, for example, often work with alumni for years after they've graduated. So my suggestion is find the ones in your area that train people in the kinds of things you need and get to know somebody in that placement office. Make a relationship with them. They can sometimes even give you a good insight into their character besides the skills that they've learned. Job fairs are obviously a place where people are looking for jobs. So if that fits with what you're looking for, get a booth, or if it's permitted, just hang out and mingle there. Meetups are a little different. So maybe there's a place where lawyers hang out just to have a drink, or designers get together to talk about new ideas or new software, and they have these regular meetups. If it's proper etiquette that you can attend, then do it. You'll probably need to become part of the community and not just be in there as a somebody who's recruiting, but they can be useful if it's appropriate. Recruiters are sometimes a good source of people who aren't even looking for a job, because sometimes the best people aren't. Even if they would love to work for you, they're just not, they're happy enough where they are. And recruiters often know these people and have relationships with them. Recruiters can be expensive, but they work well when you have a clearly defined opportunity and you'd like somebody else to do the first cut. Um, Sometimes the biggest complaint I hear about using recruiters is they don't do a good job of filtering out that first cut. So just be prepared for that, but they can extend your reach to people, like I said, who aren't looking for a job and that you may not reach any other way. Your state Department of Labor may have a job board for you. And did any of you wince when I said Department of Labor, thinking, oh, this will never work? Well, you might be right, but hold on to that thought, and I'm going to come back to it in a few minutes. Another opportunity is employee referral programs. Do your employees even know what openings you have? And certainly, if you have a way of rewarding them, paying them a bonus for somebody they bring in who stays with you for 6 months or a year. Sometimes I hear people say they're afraid of people bringing in their friends, because what if the friends don't work together well? What if I have to promote one and they're their friend's boss? What about nepotism if they bring in their relatives? If that's what's holding you back, I would suggest that's an indication that there's a bigger cultural problem in your organization. And you should solve that before you do this. But if that's not an issue, if you've got that culture that works well, then an employee referral program can be a great one. There are workforce development agencies. These are often nonprofits or government agencies. They help finding jobs for veterans or people coming out of prison, homelessness, people in recovery, et cetera. And sometimes there's a government program that pays the cost of bringing those people on, or some of the costs anyway. So those might be opportunities for some of you. And then, of course, there's ad sites and job boards, and there's a gazillion of these. Some of them are specific to an industry. So your industry might have a specific job board. There's, for general purposes, there's LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, Craigslist, Indeed. This one is actually a screenshot from theladders.com, which specializes in salaries over $100,000 a year. But there's a lot of those. You will have competition in those, and you may be flooded with the wrong applicants till you figure out how to say the right things or how to make your situation stand out. But certainly that's a very common way to find people. And since people know to go there, they're there looking for jobs. So learn how those job boards work, learn what works and what makes you stand out. And I'll give you a key in a minute, what that job board should point to, what your ad on that job board should point to. So I hope some of those ideas were useful for some of you, and I hope you found at least one that works for you. But now I want to get into a couple of ideas that are good for everybody. But don't forget how you felt when I brought up the Department of Labor. So the first one is tell everybody you know. And the way you do this is with a careers page on your website. I have a write-up on this on my website, ceobootcamp.com/careers-page, but I'll go over how you use it here because it's a really powerful tool. First of all, when we did the job description back in part one piece of the job hiring canvas was your offering. Why is your place a great place to work? And that's something you need to know here. And what you do is you make a page on your website called careers or openings or work here, whatever you want to call it. And that page is, you actually have to make several pages. That first page lists all of your positions. And that's the page that goes into the details of why your place is a great place to work, has pictures and a lot of descriptions about it. And then it lists all the openings that you have with a link to a specific page about each opening. So you need a separate page for each position. But you also need a huge link on your homepage that says we're hiring. Not one of these little menu items up in the corner that says, about us and services and contact us and, oh, we have careers here. Actually make it big and bold. We're hiring. Let people know that. So you get these three parts. On the separate page for each position, include how somebody should apply. It's usually called a call to action, but you should make it specific. And you should also make it what I call a filter. So a filter is something that's relevant to that specific job, that's geared to filter out the people who are inappropriate and filter in the people who are appropriate. So I'll give you some examples. If the job that you're hiring for needs a phone voice, then the first filter is, let's do a phone interview. And you specify some times when you're going to be available and have people call you. And that's one filter. I knew a guy who had a company with trucks that were on the road all day, and they were dropping off these welcome mats that big office buildings have with their logo and their name in them. And he would pick them up every week and clean them and bring them back. His trucks left the warehouse at 6 a.m. So guess what? He had his interviews at 6 a.m. at the warehouse. And so that was his filter. If people didn't show up for the interview, they certainly weren't going to show up for work. Sometimes people have put an ad for a salesperson and said, what we'd like you to do first is look through our website and try to sell us our own products. And we'll set up an interview for that. Some people do an online quiz. If you want to apply, fill out, they just used a Google form. Here's 6 or 7 questions. It kind of eliminates the people who think they have experience but don't have the knowledge that you particularly need. So some kind of filter like this should be in your page about how to apply. Now that you've got those pages, and specifically the page about that particular position, here's what you do with it. You make a link to that page, you make a PDF to that page, and you send those 2 things around to everybody you know. And I literally mean everybody, your customers, your vendors. Vendors are often a good source because they kind of know the industry and they know who might be moving, et cetera. But send it to your employees, send it to your friends, neighbors, your Uncle Sid, your CPA, your doctor, your lawyer, your Indian chief, and say to them, we're hiring, we're looking for, just give we're looking for a left-handed juggler or whatever it is. And here are 2 links that we would appreciate you sending out to everybody that you know. And by doing that, a couple things happen. One is, first of all, it gets the word out that your company's growing, which is always a good thing. Secondly, because you've sent the link and the PDF, your message will not get diluted. So they will just pass it on to people that they think is appropriate. Don't prejudge who you think would do. Oh, well, I'm not going to send it to them because they wouldn't know the right people, and maybe they wouldn't. But it doesn't hurt to send an email with those things, again, because they're sending a link with your message the way you wrote it, and it won't get deleted. So that's how you use a careers page. And now I want to talk about grocery stores. Most people think of hiring the way they think of a grocery store, which means they don't think about it until they need something. And they go, oh, I'm out of eggs. Well, I'll run down to the grocery store and get some. Even that weird little spice you use at the holidays, you do it once a year. You don't think about it till you need it. And you go down to the grocery store, to the Asian market or whatever it is, and you get some. You don't think typically about hiring until there's an opening. So how's that working out for you? There's got to be a better way. And there is. That better way is called bench strength. Look at how many people on the field are wearing red and yellow. Now look at how many people on the sidelines are wearing red and yellow. That's bench strength. Because in sports, people get injured, they're tired. Maybe the game is just going in a different direction that's not their strong suit, so they pull people off the bench. Now, obviously, you can't keep all those people on your payroll, so where do you get bench strength? Well, think about if you are a football team and you need a new quarterback, you don't just go put an ad in Indeed and say, I hope one shows up. You have farm teams. Now, this is farm teams in baseball. Baseball, they have AAA and AA. They have whole leagues that the big major teams support to grow these people. Football actually uses the college, and we'll see what happened because there was just a case with the NCAA that now they have to pay the college athletes, but we'll see if that changes anything. But these sports teams develop up and coming players. So I don't know where any of these people, well, Savannah Sand Gnats, Modesto Nuts, Vermont Lake Monsters, you probably never heard of any of these teams. I don't know what Homer Simpson's doing there, unless you happen to know or to live in one of these towns. But those are the farm teams for the major leagues. So how do you do this? Here's how you can develop a farm team. First of all, it starts with what we did last time. Know what you want. Know the kinds of people, the kinds of traits, the kind of skills that you're looking for. Then you develop a list of names of people that you not necessarily would hire tomorrow, but you would at least bring them in for an interview. They have met the first cut. Develop that list of names, even if you don't have a place for them. So that's where that guy that I met at Bed Bath and Beyond, he would have been on my farm team. And you book out a couple of hours every quarter to stay in touch with these people. Just send them an email. Hey, here's what's going on with us. What's going on with you? Keep those relationships going. So the tricky part of this is part number 2. Where do you get these names? And like I said, you start keeping your eyes open. I was having breakfast meeting with a guy, and I got there first. So I'm sitting in the booth, and he walks into the restaurant, waves at me, and goes right over to the counter where he starts chatting up a woman who was wearing a Comcast shirt. And he came over and told me, he said, I met her. She was behind the desk at Comcast, and Comcast is not known for good customer service, but she was incredible. And he said, I really don't have a spot for her, but I would love to bring her on. And so he got her contact information. He was staying in touch. She was part of his farm team. So that's one example. Another example is when you do have an opening and you bring people in, and there's 2 or 3 people who you would love to hire, but you only have room for one of them. Well, those other 2 can be on your farm team. Don't forget about them. Tell them why, I appreciate you coming in. We would have hired you. We just had to make a choice. Stay in touch with them. Sometimes people leave your company, but they leave on good terms for some reason that may not work out 6 months or a year down the road. Maybe they left to stay home and raise a kid, and they find out, oh, this isn't as much fun as I thought. I need to get back with the real world, or the kid's ready to go to school or whatever, or they left for another position that didn't work out. Stay in touch if they left on good terms, obviously. Maybe people that work for competitors that you can just, again, keep the relationship going. So that's how you develop this list of names on your farm team. If you have seasonal employees, this is a particularly useful tool, because when your season ends, people know that's coming. Well, stay in touch with the ones that you want to come back over the dead season, so that they're, you're top of mind for them. And like I said, you can just give them quarterly news, what's going on with you. A lot of times it's the same news to 6 or 7 people on your farm team. It's a cut and paste email. Sometimes you'll actually be mentoring a younger person in their whole career path, and that's kind of fun. Maybe you want to go to lunch with them once in a while, that kind of stuff. Dedicate some time to them. So is this a lot of work? Yes. But hiring poorly is expensive. So I would say, what's better use of your time? If you really want to build a good team, you have to be doing it on a consistent basis. CEOs of fast-growing companies often spend a third of their time on hiring. That's almost 7 full-time days a month. And so here's my last piece of advice. Do as many of these as you can all at once. That's what your CEO time is for. And remember what I said about the Department of Labor, or any of these where you had a visceral reaction of, oh no, that's never going to work. Well, try it. You don't know. Do you know anybody that met their spouse in some crazy, it would never work kind of way, but it did? This is the kind of thing you have to try. And don't say, well, I'll try this one and then I'll give it a month. And if it doesn't work, I'll try the next one. You don't know what's going to work. So try them all. And so I'm going to leave you with a story of my mother-in-law, who literally this past Saturday turned 102 years old. And we had this birthday party for her at the country club. She's doing great mentally. She's doing pretty good physically. I think she's going to outlive us all. But 6 years ago, when she was moving out of her apartment into the independent living place where she is, we had a garage sale for her. And my wife did a lot of the grunt work for it. And being the tech people that we are, we advertised it on Craigslist and we advertised it on Facebook. And Sylvia, my mother-in-law, said, well, you better put it in the newspaper. And we're like, newspaper? Really? People read those things? So we put it in the newspaper. And sure enough, everybody that I asked that was there, I said, how'd you hear about this? Oh, we read it in the paper. So My point is, you don't know what people are going to respond to. Trying to hire is a sales job, and in marketing, you have to reach people where they're at. So stop prejudging, do as many of these ideas as you can, and dedicate some time to it on a consistent basis to build your team. So thank you for your time. If you'd like a copy of this deck, email me. Be sure to let me know which session you want, because I do so many of them. And one of the things I help companies do is improve their hiring system. So if that makes sense for you, email me. John at ceobootcamp.com is where you can find me.